Chapter 13 will cover the basics of lighting in 3ds Max. And specifically, we're going to look at photometric lighting. And that's lighting that mimics the behavior of real-world illumination. So for example, if you're doing an interior like this one, you can just plug in the values of a particular light instrument or light fixture and expect that the rendering that you receive will look more or less like it would in the real world. That's the purpose of photometric lighting. 3ds Max also has so-called standard lighting, which is not physically based, and it's not really used that much anymore, and it's not the default type of lighting. We're really just going to cover photometric lighting because it actually gives us a lot more power and control, and we'll end up with more believable renderings if we use photometric lighting. Lights, of course, are going to be created from the Create panel. We'll go to the Create panel, and there's a category for lights. And you'll see we've got a pull-down list that says photometric. And from that list, you could also choose standard. As I mentioned, though, the standard lights are not physically based. I'll go back up to photometric. And these three that you see here, target light, free light, and sun positioner, will work with pretty much any renderer. But this one here that says MR Sky Portal, that's only for the Mental Ray renderer. Anything that you see that says MR on it is only for Mental Ray. We can create a target light or a free light. That's very similar to a target or a free camera, as we saw in the previous chapter. It really doesn't matter which you do here because you can always convert between the two. I'm going to create just a standard spherical free light. Click on the free light button, and I get a pop-up dialog saying, you're creating a photometric light. It's recommended that you use the logarithmic exposure control. What does that mean? Well, 3ds Max mimics the behavior of a real camera as well as the behavior of real lights. That means that we can adjust how much light gets into our rendering. Just like on a real camera, you could control the aperture or the size of the iris, or you could control the f-stop. You could control the shutter speed in order to control the amount of light that comes into the camera sensor. Well, 3ds Max will emulate that behavior if you use an exposure control technique or plugin. We're not really ready to look at exposure control. We'll look at that later in the chapter. For now, I'm just actually going to say no. And part of the reason why is that we're not going to be using the logarithmic type exposure control anyway. I'm going to say no. And then I've got the ability to create the light in any viewport. Generally, I would recommend creating the light in the top viewport and then moving it up to whatever elevation you need. I'll grab the Move tool. It's still selected here. I'll go over here and right-click on my front view and just position that up. Maybe get in a little bit closer here, see what I'm doing. I'm moving that light so that it's near that lampshade there. Now we've created our light, and if we rendered this scene, we would see some basic lighting, but we don't see it in the viewports here. Let's take a look. I'll right-click in the perspective view here and do a test rendering. Just click on the teapot icon that has a little lightning bolt on it, render production, and we'll get a very basic rendering using the scanline renderer. Our light is working. It's there in the scene and it is illuminating, but we don't see it in the viewport. In the next movie, we'll look at how we can control the viewport display.